It was 1982 when audiences first heard the chilling words, "They're here." Poltergeist, directed by Tobe Hooper and produced by Steven Spielberg, wasn't just another horror flick. It was polished, terrifying, and strangely believable. Families watched their TVs flicker late at night and swore the static was staring back at them. But over time, what people remembered most wasn't just the ghosts on screen. It was the darkness that seemed to cling to the movie itself. Because behind the cameras, the set of Poltergeist became legendary for tragedy. People still whisper about the Poltergeist Curse, a superstition claiming the production awakened something it shouldn't have. Decades later, the story is still told like a ghost story at a campfire, part fact, part myth, all unsettling. Skeletons in the pool. One scene started it all. JoBeth Williams, who played Diane Freeling, filmed a terrifying sequence where she's dragged into a muddy pool during a storm. Around her float skeletons, grinning, slimy, lifeless. Viewers assumed they were Hollywood props. Years later, the truth came out. They weren't props. They were real human skeletons. The production team admitted that sourcing actual cadavers was cheaper than crafting realistic fakes. The idea of actors thrashing in water with real bones became the seed of the curse story. If you believe in superstition, disturbing the dead invites consequences. And soon, consequences arrived. Dominique Dunne, a life cut. Short months after the movie premiered, tragedy struck. Dominique Dunne, who played Dana, the eldest daughter, was strangled by her ex-boyfriend. She lingered in a coma for several days before dying at the age of 22. The brutality of her death shocked Hollywood. A young actress full of promise, gone before her career had begun. Her killer received an outrageously light sentence, only serving a few years in prison. Fans connected the dots. First real skeletons, then a senseless death. The whispers of a curse had begun. Heather O'Rourke, the face of Poltergeist. If Dominique's death began the rumors, Heather O'Rourke's death sealed them. Heather was only 5 years old when she starred as Carol Ann, the blonde-haired little girl who warned us, "They're here." She became the franchise's symbol, appearing in all 3 films. But in 1988, just before the release of Poltergeist 3, Heather fell gravely ill. Doctors misdiagnosed her symptoms as Crohn's disease. In reality, she had a bowel obstruction that led to septic shock. Within hours, she was gone. Heather was only 12. Her sudden death devastated fans and cemented the belief that Poltergeist had claimed another victim. 2 young actresses, one murdered, one taken by medical error, both tied to the same film series. Coincidence or curse? More tragedies stack up. The deaths didn't stop with the 2 young stars. The sequels added more fuel to the legend. Julian Beck, who played the sinister preacher Cain in Poltergeist 2, died in 1985 from stomach cancer. He had been battling the disease long before he took the role, but his gaunt appearance and chilling performance made his death feel like part of the curse's narrative. Will Sampson, also in Poltergeist 2, was a Native American actor who performed a real exorcism on set to cleanse negative energy. A year later, he died during a risky heart and lung transplant. Fans claimed even the man who tried to banish the curse wasn't safe from it. By the late 1980s, journalists began listing names like they were tallying a body count. It didn't matter if the deaths had natural explanations. The story of a curse was too good to ignore. The accidents and Oddities' death wasn't the only thing people pointed to. On set, strange accidents were reported. Equipment malfunctioned without reason. JoBeth Williams swore her pictures at home were always crooked after filming. Zelda Rubinstein, who played Psychic Tangina, claimed she felt an icy presence during a photo shoot. At that very moment, her mother died miles away. Even Steven Spielberg allegedly felt uneasy, though he downplayed rumors. For fans, though, the idea of paranormal activity bleeding into production was irresistible. Media feeds the fire. Hollywood thrives on legend. The 1980s press amplified every tragedy. Tabloids ran headlines about the Poltergeist Curse. Entertainment shows interviewed grieving families and spliced their stories with eerie footage from the films. By the time Poltergeist 3 was released, the curse had become part of its marketing. Studios knew audiences couldn't resist a horror movie tied to real horror. Rumors meant free publicity. Whether it was respectful or not, the legend kept people buying tickets, skeptical voices. Of course, not everyone bought into the curse. Skeptics remind us that horror movies attract superstition like flies. When something bad happens, people connect the dots after the fact. Dominique Dunne's murder was the result of domestic violence, a tragedy far too common. Heather O'Rourke died from a misdiagnosed illness, not ghosts. Julian Beck had cancer before he was cast. Will Sampson's surgery was risky by definition. To skeptics, the Poltergeist curse is just a coincidence, a story Hollywood and fans inflate because it feels poetic, why we love the idea of a curse. But here's the question. Why does the idea refuse to die? Part of the answer lies in psychology. Humans crave patterns. We want meaning, especially in tragedy. Linking these deaths to a supernatural curse transforms random misfortune into a narrative. And horror movies are already about fear of the unknown, so the myth fits neatly into the story we want to tell ourselves. There's also something unsettling about disturbing the dead for entertainment. Using real skeletons on set gives the curse weight. It blurs the line between respect for human remains and exploitation. Whether or not it brought bad luck, it makes audiences uncomfortable in a way that keeps the curse alive. The cultural legacy. Today, more than 40 years later, the Poltergeist curse remains a cultural phenomenon. You'll find it on YouTube conspiracy channels, in horror podcasts, and even in college film courses. It has been written into the DNA of horror lore. Alongside the Exorcist curse and the Omen curse, the deaths of Dominique Dunne and Heather O'Rourke remain heartbreaking reminders of lives cut short. But for better or worse, their stories are now inseparable from the legend. Every time someone watches Poltergeist, the curse hovers in the background, an invisible extra character. Was it real? So was the set of Poltergeist truly cursed? Or was it simply a collection of tragedies magnified by fear, coincidence, and human imagination? Maybe it doesn't matter. The power of a curse lies in belief. As long as people continue to retell the story, the curse remains alive. And perhaps that's the scariest part. Not the ghosts on the screen, but the ones we carry in our minds. The ones that make us wonder if some movies are more than just movies. Comment, like, and subscribe for more deep dives into Hollywood's darkest legends.